Namaste, hello friends, and welcome to my kuti, my little room here, where I'm looking at you from a slightly different perspective. Today you are sitting, the camera that is, the phone, on a chair in front of me. Normally you're balanced on a upside down table leg up there. So a new perspective, a new view. Maybe you'll form a new opinion. It is here, and I think in most places at the moment, the beginning, it is a new day, a new week. In some places, the beginning of the new week. Here, it is the beginning of the day. So depending on where you are on this beautiful planet of ours, you have a different perspective of time. To some, it is the end of the first day, at the beginning of the week, or getting towards that. To others, it is the middle. To me, it is the beginning. And a good way of beginning my day is with reflection. Reflection on this again, I forgot the camera, the microphone, but I think you heard me. I hope so, because I'm not going to start again. I'm sorry about that. But for me, a nice way to begin the day is with reflection. We have, in our chanting, certain frequently recollected subjects, which I have been through before, but sometimes we can just reflect on worldly life and things that are affecting our practice directly. And a good way for me to do that is when I read some of your questions, which are coming from experience. It reminds me of my own similar experiences and gives me the opportunity to yet reflect on these subjects. So thank you for your questions and thank you for your comments. And this brings me, talking of perspective and point of view and varying opinions that there are in the world, brings me to the first question, I think, and the opportunity to check the time, which I'm remembering. I might not have remembered the microphone today, but I've remembered to check the time. So there we go, that's good. And the first question, Venerable, may I ask for your guidance on how to understand and cope with feelings of hurt that arise when we face unfair criticism? Is it our delusion of permanent self that causes this emotional pain? Thank you. Okay. I wouldn't say it's the delusion, just skipping to the end of the question there, I wouldn't say it's the delusion of self, as in our own ignorance, not understanding that this personality, this self of ours, is as equally impermanent as the body itself and all causes and conditions that make up what we see as this personality. I would say it's more of the attachment to that self, that perspective, that opinion of what one's self is. But more accurately, those held beliefs, held opinions, held ideas that one might hold on to a little bit too firmly. So, with this in mind, somebody is criticizing you, whether it's through an act of body, speech, or mind, so a belief, an understanding, a view. It is your point of view, and it is that on which your acts of body and speech may depend. This perspective from where this criticism is coming from is much like where you may happen to be on the planet at the moment. If I was to hold too tightly to my perspective and view that it was the beginning of my day at the beginning of this week, and then to get into conversation with somebody, let's say in Hong Kong, or there's probably somewhere further, I can't think of somewhere, and talk to them about it, and it was towards the end of their day. If I was to hold on to this idea too tightly, and they were to hold on to their idea too tightly, and they were to criticize me for suggesting it's the beginning of the day, when clearly to them it is towards the end of the day, then this is just a matter of perspective and view. So we must, when we're criticized, rather than be hurt, rather than experience, as you describe it, as pain, of course, because if somebody says something quite cutting, quite nasty, quite cruel, by way of a remark, either about your physicality, your appearance, your views, or how you go about doing something, or something you've said, it is very easy to take it personally. But only if we hold on too tightly to what is that person. So you are quite right in what you're saying. Is it the delusion of a permanent self that causes the pain? It is kind of, but it is more the attachment to that personal self and the opinions of that personal self that your view is right. So we have something called righteous indignation, which is going one step further, based on anger. So we have greed, hatred, and delusion, which are the three root defilements. Hatred is akin to anger, and when we really hold tightly to views and opinions that we hold dear to us from our own perspective, and somebody of an opposing idea or an opinion comes to us with criticism, then we take it personally and sometimes even behave aggressively in response. No, I am right, you are wrong. Quite simply, if you have right view, as in the Noble Eightfold Path, then this is based on the Four Noble Truths. Truths where there is no doubt. There is only one truth. There's no, well, it could be true, it's a little bit true. It is only true or false. And the Four Noble Truths are quite basic in that there's suffering, a cause of suffering, an end of suffering, and this path leading to the end of suffering, this path being that Noble Eightfold Path, beginning with right view, which is that there are these Four Noble Truths, and also that there are these characteristics of our existence of a nature that everything is impermanent, everything is unsatisfactory and out of our control, or anatta, not self. So we may consider ourselves, I may consider myself a monk here, the beginning of my week, the beginning of my day, talking about Dharma. Somebody in Hong Kong may consider me a Westerner, a foreigner, a white man, wearing a dress, talking nonsense at the end of his day. That is his view. Now, if he was to vocalize, to express this opinion to me, am I going to be hurt? Am I going to feel pain as a result of this? Well, no, because in that quite stark and real example, I know that he is basing his view on what he is experiencing from his perception. To him it is the evening, and what he is seeing is a white Westerner, foreigner, wearing a dress. Because he doesn't maybe understand or know that I am this kind of clothing is the attire of a monk, a Buddhist monk, a Theravada Buddhist monk of a particular tradition. He probably doesn't know why I've travelled to this part of the world or anything about my background. So it's unfair to say that is ignorance, but it is a lack of information, which really affects his view from his perspective. So what do we have there? What do we develop from that? Do we develop this tendency to be angry and respond, correct him and argue? Or is it much simpler with our 4 Brahma Viharas that we've been practicing of metta, loving kindness, karuna, compassion, and mudita, joy for others? Is it better to have equanimity, the 4th of these 4 Brahma Viharas, upekkha, equanimity, and not react, because we have compassion for this poor individual in Hong Kong, that he is limited in his understanding, and therefore his view is not based on the same perspective from our own. So to some extent his criticism could be just, albeit he may be exercising, not practicing right speech, by sometimes people have a tendency out of this delusion, this anger, this hatred coming from the root defilements that we all have there underlying until they're fully uprooted. As a result of that, he may have, from his perspective, this tendency to aggressively vocalize his opinion, write it down, put it somewhere, say it, and give you the feeling of being criticized. And that would be out of righteous indignation, so delusion, his criticism of you. And he may feel righteous. Why do we have this righteous indignation? Why does it arise? Why does it get repeated? Because it feels good. Anger, it's related to anger. Anger feels good. Anger, the Buddha described as the honey-tipped thorn, poisonous arrow, something like that. Anyway, it tastes good. It feels good because you're getting something off your chest. You disagree with an opinion, so you stamp your feet and you say, no, that's not right. I am right. Perhaps as a reaction, without thinking, without exercising compassion, or even loving kindness, but compassion, mudita, but not practicing, having not developed equanimity, you just act upon the feeling of anger with righteous indignation, because it brings immediate satisfaction. Well, I am fighting for my cause. This is the honey-tipped part of this poisonous arrow. However, it then comes back to hurt you, because of course you will come to the realization that you may not have been wrong, but it was just from a limited perspective, one point of view, and not many. So we put ourselves in that position and understand that, and take criticism from any critic by offering them only with our minds, but within our hearts, compassion back. Not retaliation, not anger, not even response, just compassion. And also metta, loving kindness. Wish that they will become free from their suffering, from that honey-tipped poisoned arrow of righteous indignation. Maybe they could become free one day from suffering as a result of these defilements of greed, hatred, and delusion. when they see their perspective as this beautiful planet continually revolves, soon becomes the same perspective as my own. As it becomes the next morning or the next beginning of the next day, or when they change, when they move to a different country or to a different place, or just experience through life all of these different things that we learn. So that is how you don't pick it up. Oh no, this is above my answer. Emotional pain. Thank you. So that's the basis of where this hurt, where this pain comes from. The simple answer is, if someone offers you criticism, you don't have to accept it. You can listen attentively and you can say some form of response, but you don't have to accept it. You don't have to say, right, I feel terrible now. Unless, of course, you are absolutely wrong. If you're driving up a one-way street and somebody says you're driving up a one-way street, oh yes, okay, I'm sorry, and you turn around, you go the other way. You don't say, well, I don't care, I'm not accepting that. It's criticism. But if it's a matter of point of view, a matter of opinion, a matter of somebody's either limited understanding or even your own limited understanding, then there is no fact or fiction, there is no true or untrue about that. It's subjective, it's a matter of opinion, it's a matter of perspective. So you choose to differ and go your separate ways, politely saying, okay, well, thank you for telling me that. I will bear that in mind. You don't have to be passive-aggressive in the way you say that. You can just nod accept, however it is easiest for you. But non-retaliation is by way the best way to deal with it. So not accepting the anger or not accepting the criticism, you're also then able to not pick it up. If you've picked it up previously, now is the time to put it down, let it go. So that's a very good question. Thank you for asking. I hope my opinions on that are useful. And the next question, are you allowed a milky coffee or milk tea in the afternoon or afternoon? Well, actually, milk does come under, in our tradition, as is classified as food. So the answer is no. And of course, it is food. This is our first food as mammalians, mammals, humans. So no, we don't have milk in our tea or coffee either. Personally, I've never had that. I don't have milk anyway, so that's not too tough for me. I drink black coffee, and I am allowed that. So that's not a problem. But I understand where your question's coming from, because milk is actually, it's very, when you're hungry, it's a very good thing to have. And I did have, when I was in Thailand, they have a lot of soy milk. And I made a bit of a mistake. I read the Korwat, which is our bylaws of the particular monastery I was in. And the way it was printed, there was a list of allowables and a list of specifically not allowable drinks. And I saw soy milk as an allowable drink in the allowables list, thinking, well, that makes sense because soy milk is made of soybeans. And if you are technically allowed black chocolate because it is made of cocoa beans, you're allowed coffee because it's made of coffee beans, then why shouldn't one be allowed to have anything a derivative of soybeans? So I used to collect these little cartons of soy milk up, and then afternoon or in the evening when I was feeling quite faint, because we have our only one and only meal at 8:30 in the morning, so by 8:30 in the evening you're very hungry. Here it's midday, well, half past 11 o'clock we eat here, or I eat here at 11 o'clock. I eat alone, so yes, I eat here at 11 o'clock, which is a little bit better because the afternoon's not so long then in the evening. But anyway, I was drinking these, and I wasn't doing it secretly, you know, this is not the sort of way we behave. But of course they asked me, why are you drinking this milk? or they said, "Are you drinking this milk?" So they were being quite correct. They called me to at the appropriate time, timely. This is about right speech again. They at the right time. So after the meal, my teacher there summoned me. Actually, he summoned me, but then got someone else to talk to me about it, a lay person who could speak English. And he had prepared the questions. Okay, so it was accurate. So it was timely after I'd eaten. The information was accurate and true. They had established quite easily that I was drinking these cartons of soy milk. What are the three things? Timely, true. They very kindly said, "Are you drinking soy milk?" They didn't just say, "Hey, you're drinking soy milk in the afternoon." They said, "Are you?" So I was able to say, "Well, yes, of course I am. It's beans." You can have bean juice, can't you? Realizing at this point I might have made a mistake. True, timely, truthful, kindly. So then they usefully, because the fourth is usefully pointed out, no, this is food. We consider here in Thailand soy milk as food. And they do. They drink a lot of soy milk, and it is a very nourishing food. So despite my point of view, as I was just talking, and technically my understanding of the Vinaya is that it is actually okay to drink soy milk in the afternoon, and I have done previously. It's not always something that's available depending where you are. You can't get it here, for instance. But I have in the past, but because there it is not acceptable, I wouldn't have argued the point. But they usefully pointed out to me that that isn't right, and also drew my attention to the korwat of the temple, which, as I wasn't about to argue, was about to say, well, I saw, and they showed me that if you flip the page, at the top of the page, was what I had missed, was where it said this is not allowable. I'm going on about this a bit too much, aren't I? And then finally, the fifth of them is from, you should always only speak from a place of experience or practice what you preach. There's no point saying you can't drink soy milk if I can't say you can't drink soy milk if I do. So of course they don't. So they pointed this out. This was a really simple question, wasn't it? Thank you. And I've spoken all this length about soy milk because it made an impression on me, because I did have a little bit of righteous indignation, perhaps bubbling. But because of the way they told me and expressed their opinion and explained it to me in this very succinct manner and this very kindly manner, using this formula for right speech of true, accurate, kind, useful, and from their own point of view, abiding by the same rule. The way it was, I was very happily and immediately able to accept that, yes, I've made a mistake, and felt quite embarrassed, really. But not they didn't make me feel embarrassed. I just felt quite silly that I'd misinterpreted something, and realized that perhaps in future, if I had any doubt, which I might have had, I'm not sure that I did have any doubt, I should ask. Sometimes we have doubt and we don't ask because we don't want to hear the answer in the negative. So I may have not asked, apart from the language barrier, which was going to be the problem with the asking. I could have just said yes or no, and they would have said no, but I probably then would have wanted my opportunity to give my point of view. But in the Vinaya it says you can have these beans. Anyway, regardless of that, then the soy milk stopped. So that was the end of soy milk days there in Thailand. So in answer to your question, no, we can't have milk, milky tea, coffee, and here, of course, very difficult to get anything outside unless you have it made yourself within the monastery. Everything outside, in chai shops, chai is always milk. Coffee shops, it's milky. It's they use a lot of milk here, so it's quite a difficult thing. But we don't go out in the afternoons anyway. But the tea, often you will find in monasteries there will be monks drinking tea with a bit of milk in or whatever. And I think in England, in the monasteries, we do have soy milk in tea. So that's probably where I got that idea from, along with chocolate and other allowables, jelly beans, because jelly is apparently something because it comes really from the boiling of a broth of bones. Well, that's why I don't eat jelly in the first place, because it's made of bones. But you can get vegetarian jelly these days, apparently. But really, I can't see the point of jelly, really. It just, I can't see the point of anything in these tiny quantities to try and satisfy that desire of hunger, because it's not going to do that unless it's particularly designed to do that. It's just going to make you want more and maybe be a little bit greedy over, say, the chocolate or the jelly or the cheese that some might consider as allowables, and technically are in accordance with the Vinaya, along with soy milk. But in the specific allowables are the Chatu Madhu, it means 4 honeys, but are 4 things: honey, jaggery, which is unrefined sugar, ghee, which is clarified butter, so it's had the dairy, what's it called, whey, the solid bits taken out, so it's just like the oil of butter, and oil. Those 4 are the only things we're technically allowed. And if you have a spoonful of clarified butter, ghee, which is quite solid, it's like butter, it goes solid, with a spoonful of jaggery, or a big spoonful of honey, which is allowable in Thailand, and they have vat loads of the stuff. So I did replace my habit of soy milk with lashings of honey. I put it in my black coffee, actually, which is very nice. Black coffee with sugar I'm not so keen on, but I do have it occasionally if I'm feeling faint. Put some just sugar. I don't think it matters too much whether it's refined or not. It's still sugar, the basic ingredient. And jaggery is very tasty on its own. You could just eat jaggery here as a sweet. It's like barley sugar, we call it in England, but it's very tasty. It's orange in colour, or it's this colour. So, but of those 4 things, you could just have honey, or just some small spoon of ghee, and some sugar, and it actually does have the actual effect of taking away the hunger by lining your stomach somewhat, but also it's not that nice a taste. It's a bit sickly, a bit potent, so you don't want much more of it. You wouldn't get greedy like something with cheese or jelly babies, marshmallows or chocolate, where you could just eat them until, figuratively speaking, the cows come home. So, no, I've gone not going very far with these questions. That's only 2. It's nice to have this beginning of the week, Monday morning chat. Sampapalapa, idle chatter. I hope it's not idle. I hope some of it is useful. I did check the time, didn't I, when I began? No idea what that was now, though. Okay. This is a very long. The problem is when I don't edit them, I have to find the question. Right, I'll leave that one for now. Oh, it's a very good question. But that could be a whole talk. Bhante, I'll just use a quick question to fill in the gap. Bhante, fill in the awkward silence. Now this is Sampapalapa. Be with the awkward silence. Not me doing this, because you'd be wasting your data sitting there watching me not saying something, put it that way. But when you're having an experience of awkward silence with somebody, just be with it and experience it, and see how it is without filling the gap. And if you can, make eye contact with the person you're with during the awkward silence. It's interesting. You'll see all kinds of emotions and physical feelings even arise. Just to show you, for example, how out of control of these so-called selves we are. Just to give you an example of anatta, if you have an awkward silence, just look into the person's eyes without saying anything. And continue to watch your breath. You'll really experience that anatta, not self. You're not in control of your emotions, your physical feelings. It's not you. So don't take it personally. Anatta. So Bhante, asubha is easy to talk about, but a very hard thing to put into practice. So this practice of seeing or recognizing or reflecting on the unattractive nature of things so as to reduce the desire for them is, yes, I wouldn't say so. It may not work all the time. So in that case, yes, it's harder. It's easier said than done. I could say to you, if you think about pizza after it's finished traveling through your digestive tract, it will put you off. Then yes, for a second or two, but then when you sort of see the pizza, smell the pizza, start tasting the pizza, you'll soon forget that. So this is true. But this regular reflection, this continual practice, eventually does help to erode slowly the desire. These things are not instant. Some can be. You can easily put someone off, for instance. Some people who are a little squeamish about some subjects, if you were to say to them, look about something they're eating, it is made of this, or it looks like that, or it's of this nature, you can put them off. You know, you can hear people saying, sometimes you might have heard, oh, don't say that, you put me off my food, or something like this. So that's an instant. But the thing we're looking at is a continual developing practice with the asubha to help erode the desire by understanding where it's coming from. By understanding that it's coming from an ignorance or delusion to the unsatisfactory nature of what it is you desire, being that its lasting satisfaction is also impermanent and therefore unsatisfactory. And even if you have unlimited supply, then you will soon not like it because you would have too much. So if your passion was for pizza and you had an unlimited supply of pizza and nothing else, you wouldn't be long before you really didn't want any more pizza. This is anicca. So what I said in my answer was just do it. Don't talk about it. Yes, so yeah, it's easy to talk about, harder to do, but just do it. Keep doing it. Keep reflecting upon it, and it will come natural. You will naturally see things for what they are, and actually, eventually, this is where the expression, the Pali word nirodha, so the English expression of that is disenchantment. This is where this comes from. Ultimately, this is our aim. Not to just dislike everything and have no desires full stop, but to realize the impermanent nature, unsatisfactoriness of things, how your desires are insatiable, whatever they are. Even if you think you still want more, you don't, you want something different, you get fed up. You might have something so much that you get fed up of it, but then the desire will switch to, after you've finished all that pizza and your mountain of pizza is still there, your desire, if it's food-based, if it's hunger-based, will go to, or not even hunger-based, just wanting food, will switch to something different, like ice cream, for instance, as an alternative. It's a kilesa, which is a defilement. It comes from greed, this roots of greed, hatred, delusion, comes from the greed defilement, and this is driving this wanting, this thirst, this insatiable craving. And it's recognizing this through this practice of asubha that we eventually develop nirodha, disenchantment, knowing that it doesn't matter what we have, however much of it, or then what we replace it with, the desire will still be there. By recognizing the desire can eventually fade away. It may come back, but you'll see it again and face it head on. You're just desire, you're just wanting, you're insatiable thirst and craving. And it'll go away. Label it, name it. Oh, this is just wanting. It's not needing. I'm not hungry. I just want something because I'm bored. Or I have some pain. I want to distract myself from this pain. It's just that. Right. Oh, I thought I said green tea. Oh no, we're back to food again. Food and drinks now. I started green Tara mantra chanting and bad things started happening. Sorry, I didn't mean to say that in a mocking way. It's not the way it meant to come out. You see, no, it's not controllable, is it? Even I can't take this body personally, this speech personally. It's anatta, out of our control. I started green Tara mantra chanting and bad things started happening. I lost so much money, a cobra bites me, nearly death experience. How to see these things? Well, I wouldn't see these things as being at all related to what you're chanting. I would see those things as being unfortunate experiences, but depending on where you are in the world, things that happen. You're not going to get bitten by a cobra in the middle of London or Paris, unless it's escaped from the zoo. But here, it's very likely. These things happen. This is the whole point of the Buddha's teachings. Dukkha. There is suffering, and there is a cause of suffering. The cause of suffering, though, is not chanting the green Tara mantra. Now, that's from a different tradition. I don't know anything about it. But if we just take it in general as chanting, you could still chant beautifully all of the paritas, the protection chants, each and every day. In this tradition, that's what they called, or in that particular tradition, the green Tara mantra, or the medicine Buddhas, or all of these different things that are available for you to chant. They're ways of calming the mind and helping focus your attention on something like a mantra, to assist with allowing the mind to settle so that it can then become calm, in order that you can develop samadhi, this single-pointed, focused meditation on one meditation object, and then withdraw into oneself, away from the experiences of seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching, and thinking. And this is meditation. This is what we call samadhi, meditation. But this actual chanting practice is not for, what did I say in my answer? Oh, I just said, look, practice sila, morality, samadhi, meditation, and panya, the development of wisdom. And keeping these 5 precepts is the best way to actually, and then also practicing meditation and developing wholesome mind states, reducing unwholesome mind states. So actually what I'm saying there is follow the Noble Eightfold Path. This is the best way to protect yourself and others from harm, through keeping yourself out of harm's way where possible. But you cannot diminish the potential harm that may be there. We don't know how these bodies will behave. If you hadn't have got bitten by a cobra, you could have had a heart attack, or we could have had an aneurysm in the brain and die before we even breathe the next breath. We don't know what will happen in the future. We cannot change what we've done in the past. But if we keep mindfulness, awareness of all our actions of body, speech and mind in the very present moment, here and now, then we can be a little bit more careful so as not to get in the path of that cobra, in that snake's way. It would only have bitten you out of fear, because they're very quick, they can get away from you. If it was cornered in a room, or you're walking a little too close to it, it might strike in fear. Otherwise, if it has a route, it will escape. So through just mindfulness alone, sati, sampajana, awareness, wise attention to everything you're doing, you can avoid these catastrophes, these mishaps, these problems, because it was as much of a fearful, and you might not see it this way, it was as much of a frightening experience for the snake as it is for you. So that's the snake, but it's the same applies to money, with the dealings of money. Now, not to become too attached to money and consider it that important, of course it is your livelihood and you require it to feed, to have shelter, clothing, medicine. Of course, as a result of the bite, you would have needed hospitalization. You may be in a country where you have to pay for this. Money is important. And if you've just lost all your money, what a terrible situation. Of course, this is suffering. This is dukkha, the unsatisfactory nature of samsara, which is why we practice to not be reborn into samsara again. But money also is lost through our negligence of it, our neglect to take care of it, through taking too many risks or uneducated risks, not being careful, mindful. So the same, the Noble Eightfold Path applies to that. Any amount of chanting isn't going to directly bring you what you want, protection. It's not for luck. It's not for magical purposes. It's to direct the mind, point it in the right direction towards following the Noble Eightfold Path. It's about reflection. Chanting is about reflection, so developing right view. It's about being careful of our actions and what we do, right intention. Our speech, keeping an eye on this. All of our actions, the livelihood we do. This more relates to your money query here. Are you perhaps gambling a little bit, and this is how you lost money? Maybe you thought you could do better than your normal job. You've gone into, say, trading on online futures exchanges or something like that. This often happens these days, and people lose a lot of money that way. They thought it was a good thing to do. It was clever and they could make lots of money. Where does this come from? It comes from greed, more desire. You know, you have to work for your money. And it's not made easily. I actually worked in that industry and it was very hard. There was no quick, fast money in that industry. You can make a lot of money, but you work very hard. It's much easier to dig holes and get paid an hourly rate or something like that, often, than that kind of job. And at least you know the money you earn you keep. You don't lose it all at the end of the day. So these are things you must consider as to the reasons behind those problems that you've experienced. Please don't blame this blessed green Tara, because it's not her fault. And it's not your fault either for chanting that mantra. Continue with that. There's nothing wrong with it. It's focusing your mind. It's good. Directing your mind towards the teachings of the Buddha. Directing your mind towards following the Noble Eightfold Path. And then right mindfulness, right effort in doing the chanting, right effort in keeping moral virtue, right effort in practicing meditation, and then mindfulness, and then the meditation, the samadhi, as I've just spoken about. So this is the answer to that question. Well, it's not necessarily the answer. It's my point of view, from my perspective. I think my answer I wrote to you is a bit vague, really. So I hope that's expanded upon it. I hope you're listening, watching. Vague, I mean abrupt. So I can be sometimes with these written answers because there's quite a few questions. I wish I could be a bit more abrupt in speech and not waffle on so much, and then I'd get through a lot more of these questions. Right. I don't mean that. Hi Bhante, what practices do you think one has to undertake to attain stream entry in this lifetime? Sorry. What practices do you think one has to undertake to attain stream entry in this lifetime? Well, I think I've just said it. Sila, moral virtue. Samadhi, meditation. and Panya, development of wholesome mind states, reduction of unwholesome mind states, or wisdom. Just that. Follow the Noble Eightfold Path, and you can attain to stream entry in this lifetime. Anyone can. You don't have to be a monk, but you have to follow the Noble Eightfold Path. You have to keep the 5 precepts. You don't even have to keep the 8, but you have to absolutely keep the 5 precepts, because only this way are you able to, well, if you are able, a stream enterer is unable to break the 5 precepts, put it that way. Because if you're able to break one of the 5 precepts, then you do not have right view. You still have a stream enterer, you see. I should explain. A stream enterer has abandoned personality view. They've accepted that their personality, what they consider as themselves, is purely the result of causes and conditions. They have also abandoned rites and rituals. Now, this doesn't mean they stop chanting the green Tara mantra, but it means they stop thinking, believing, and they realize that by chanting the green Tara mantra, it will not bring them good fortune. It will just direct their mind and their attention towards the Noble Eightfold Path and this practice of Sila, Samadhi, Panya, and therefore will result in good fortune, because this is karma. This is vipaka, the results of karma. Karma is the actions of our body, speech and mind, which in accordance with the Noble Eightfold Path are good and result in good vipaka, good results. We reap what we sow. And what was I on? Stream entry. Yes, sorry, I forgot for a moment. My mind went blank. And finally, you have no doubt whatsoever about the 4 Noble Truths. So just these 3 things. Big things, though. This personality, it's not you. Okay? Rites and rituals, they're not going to get you anything. You have to put in the work. Practice the Noble Eightfold Path. And finally, no doubt whatsoever in the 4 Noble Truths. So you unequivocally not know, not even understand, but have the absolute awakening and realization. This is why it's the first stage of enlightenment. You're enlightened to the truth of suffering, that there is a cause of suffering, a path leading, an end of suffering, and a path leading to the end of suffering. These three things are the first 3 fetters that have been cut at the root, removed to never be re-established again, that are what we call, because this is just the name, Sotapanna or stream enterer, the first level or stage of enlightenment. So this can be done through the practice of Sila, Samadhi, Panya. You see it goes in a circle, doesn't it? Yes? By practicing Sila, Samadhi, Panya, you become a Sotapanna. And what is Sotapanna? It's understanding that you have to practice Sila, Samadhi, Panya to become a Sotapanna, and so on. All of these Buddha's teachings are so simple like that. They come back to the beginning. The 4 Noble Truths contain the Noble Eightfold Path, which contains the 4 Noble Truths, right in the beginning, in right view. It's just that. Okay. Yes, I'm not sure I can read that one properly. I'm interested, but what are you interested in? I'm interested, but what branch of Buddhism is it you follow? I think this was in response to a very old, not even a video, a notification maybe. Not a notification. What's one of those things you put just some words? So if I make an announcement saying there's going to be live guided meditation tonight, I do this thing. It's called something on YouTube. So I put one of these some long time ago. If you'd like to be interested in taking Tisarana Panchasila, which is refuge in the Triple Gem, or taking the 5 precepts, as Buddhists do, lay Buddhists do, with monks in temples or monasteries, or online even these days, then you can do that here. And that's what it said, something like that. So when you take refuge, you recite some Pali verses after repeating them after the monk, me in this case, and then you recite also repeating. You don't have to remember this stuff. Repeating after the monk the 5 precepts, then you should remember them because you need to keep them. If you don't remember them, you can't keep them. But not necessarily in Pali. As long as you know it's no killing, stealing, sexual misconduct, lying, or intoxicants, then that's good. If that's your language and your own language, then you can do that. And I made an announcement to say that this can be done via me. But I don't think there were many takers for that, and I wasn't quite sure logistically how one would do it. Probably on one of these live video things we could, or something like that. But anyway, that's not your question. You are interested in that, and so which case, fine. But what branch of Buddhism is it that you follow? Well, I am a Theravada Buddhist monk. So of the main traditions, Mahayana and Theravada, and then there's also, well, the 4 main are Vajrayana, which is like the Tibetan, or Mahayana's also a bit Tibetan, but then there's Zen, but then there's many others. But the main ones in the southern traditions, in Thailand, Sri Lanka, India, actually you've got everything in India, so Thailand, Sri Lanka, Myanmar are Theravada. And then when you go further out, you'll often find a lot of Mahayana traditions. So that's mainly the distinction. And then within those traditions, there are divisions again. Now, I was trained in the Thai Forest tradition, in the lineage of Ajahn Chah, because that was where I was first spending time in a monastery in my own country and then in Thailand. But I was ordained in a Theravada Buddhist Monastery in India, which is not a Thai Forest tradition monastery, albeit I still live by that training and that core what. And being as it's still Theravada, there's nothing much different in terms of the Vinaya. Well, there's nothing different at all in terms of the Vinaya. And depending on the branches, and this particular organization, the Mahabodhi Society, has many branches, I can still live in forest monasteries or similar, even in India when I'm not in Thailand. Anyway, in answer to your question, I'm a Theravada Buddhist monk, and I was ordained in Bodh Gaya, where is the holy site, the main holy site of Buddhism, where the Buddha became enlightened. And I was ordained by the Mahabodhi Society, which is a well-known organization throughout the world. So, I think that's more or less the end of the questions. Apart from these, the big long ones, which are not there's so much comments, I think they're from emails, so I need to just look into those. I hope that's useful. And there's something you can take away from that, something you can use, something you can practice. It is only my perspective, my point of view. Apply it to your own experience and your point of view, whatever time of day it may be, whatever the weather may be, and your location. And if it's useful, I'm very happy. If it's not, please just let it go and don't let it bother you. And I appreciate all of your comments, your questions that you send in. Thank you for watching. Thank you for subscribing. And thank you for some kind donations that have been received. Always are gratefully received. My Kapia here is able to supply me with coffee and tea, black, of course. And I've been able to source here in India, it sounds silly because I'm in India, But often when you're in countries where things are produced, it gets exported. But they grow some wonderful coffee in South India. So I have some very nice fresh South Indian coffee, which is largely owing, thank you, to people who have kindly sent some donations in for that purpose. Buy me a coffee link thing. So I do appreciate that coffee. It keeps me awake for my extended and long meditation sessions, and we have to have some pleasures in our lives, all of us. This practice is not wholly a practice of austerity, even if you're a monk. We need to really enjoy this practice for it to work. So I'll say to you, please progress happily on your path towards Nibbana. Sukhi hotu, sukhi hotu, sukhi hotu. Be happy and stay well.